Hi, my name's Dustin Mahrt, and I'm interviewing Don Robertson, who did a monumental concept album in 1969 called Dawn. And this album is probably the purest transcendent album of the 60s. It's a concept album based on philosophy, nature, society, and sound, positive and negative sound waves. And it's completely eargasmic, mind-blowing. And so Don has had this huge journey through music, and from East Coast to West Coast, he's played with some of the best musicians America had through the years. And so I guess, Don, if you could you start with telling your journey of music from, let's say, when you got out of the military?
When I joined the Navy in 1960, I had just discovered Django Reinhardt, the great French gypsy guitarist. I wanted to learn jazz guitar, and I had a guitar, so I spent about a year and a half learning jazz guitar, and then formed a jazz trio. Played in the officers' clubs in the Navy, and on board the ship, quartet, bass, saxophone, and drums, and then my guitar. After I left the Navy, I attended the University of Colorado in Boulder, Colorado, studying music. I started a band called the Nicadors. And the Nicadors, there was four of us, so we were the four Nicadors. That was a friend of mine came up with that name. It was just comic. If you've heard of Townes Van Zandt, yeah, well, Townes was going to school there, and he was friends with my ex-wife, Susie, and he had turned her on to Bob Dylan. She started playing Bob Dylan albums. We were together, and I said, this guy doesn't sound right. His voice doesn't sound right. But I started listening to words, and I fell in love with Bob Dylan's music.
Down upon you and me.
At any rate, Townes came over to the house one night with his two friends, and the Nicadors, the four of us, were rehearsing. They left, and that night someone broke into this house, I believe it was the bass player's house, and stole all our instruments and stole my Marshall amp. It was very expensive. And I had this amazing Gibson guitar. It was top of the line, hollow body with F-holes on it and 3 pickups. I don't remember the exact model number. Those all got stolen. And whoever stole them actually had wire cutters and clipped the wire, so we knew it was either Townes Van Zandt or Townes' buddies that came back and got the instruments that night. And I just thought of that story. We played in fraternity houses. I heard about a band called the Playboys that was supposed to be an exceptional band. And they were from Denver, and they were up in Boulder, and I found them playing somewhere. I drove over there, and oh, I love this band. They had a fellow named Lee Durley who was the lead singer, and he played the organ. This was the first blues music that I really had ever listened to, and it was really great blues. I mean, he was just fantastic. And so when the concert was over, I went up on stage and I said, hey, guy, I'm a guitar player with the Nicadors, and I'm really interested in learning blues. Can you tell me where I can go? Lee was from Denver. So he said, I have a friend that lives here in Boulder, and he's a white guy. He used to play guitar with the band, and he's a great guy to teach you about blues. So I called this fellow up, don't remember his name. Went over to his house, and he was just overjoyed to turn me on to blues. And we sat there all afternoon playing 45s, and I learned all about Lonnie Mack. American, B.B. King. Freddie King. I remember he played me songs. I'd never heard any of this stuff before. All kinds of records. So I went home and I started practicing learning blues, and I put B.B. King. Well, I had to find B.B. King. He wasn't well known that at all. And I had to drive to Denver and go to the African American section of town. And I found B.B. King records in the cutout bin. And I brought them home and played them at half speed. It was 16, it was called 16 RPM. I think the only things that were in 16 RPM were recordings of the Bible. That way I could play them half speed and I could learn the licks. So I learned to play blues guitar. I don't know how much longer it was, not too long after this experience. I heard that Lee Durley had left the band and had broken up. And someone said he was living in Denver and they didn't know where. So I started going to Denver and I found him after a while. I had to inquire. I finally found him. And I didn't really know him. I'd only talked to him that one time. And Lee, I told Lee, I said, hey, would you be interested in joining our band, the Nicadors? I'd just love to play with you. It'd be just great. And we could just do this great job and it'd be really wonderful. And you don't have a band now and it'd be just the best thing ever. And he says, I know about your band. He says, I'm not playing with any of those people. He said, if you get rid of those people, I might consider if you can get Rod Jenkins as the drummer. Well, Rod Jenkins was the drummer at Tulagis, at the main club in Boulder at that time for music. It's called On the Hill in Boulder. It was, he played with the house band there. He'd been there playing with this band for a long time, and they were very good. I approached him one night and I said, my name's Don Robertson and I'm in contact with Lee Durley and we want to start a band. Would you be interested? He said, yeah. And he quit. Now the thing was with the other band, these were really good guys in that band, but they weren't. I had to teach them how to play the song. So every time I learned a new song, I invested a lot of time. I talked to Lee and he said, all right, let's do it. I said, let's meet over at my mom's house in Denver at such and such a time. And then I told my mom, I said, hey, I'm bringing some guys over. We're going to rehearse. We're going to figure out what our song list is. Because get some gigs. We got to play our songs and figure out which ones we're going to use and all that. So she said, okay. And so we all got together. Well, Rod Jenkins was a white guy, but Lee Durley was an African American, a black guy, right? So my mom had a problem with that. But at any rate, we sat down and we went through and put together our whole song list in 3 or 4 hours. Played them one time, and everybody knew what to do. Moved on to the next song, and then someone would say, "Let's do this instead of that." Okay, and then we moved to the next song. And it just amazing. None of this sitting there for days. It was just through all the songs. We started getting jobs in Denver, and he played this M1 or M3, I think it was, organ, Hammond organ. So it wasn't a B3, it was a smaller one. And at any rate, we had to put it ran a U-Haul, and it was really driving around these clubs. So we'd have a gig for one night. They had an empty night. We'll put you in Friday night, and we rent the U-Haul, and it was something else. So I wanted to bring the band up to Boulder, where I lived and where I was going to school, and where there were all these wonderful college girls and the whole thing, So one night I went to this club on the outskirts of Boulder, and I can't think of the name of it right now, but I'll probably know by the time I do the video. I talked to the owner of the club. I noticed that there was hardly anybody in this. It was a supper club, but there was no one eating and very few people in there. And I said, I have this band and I'd like to bring it up here, and what would you think about that? Would you be interested in having a band here? And he said, well, if you want to play for free. And I said, all right, can we charge a cover charge and keep it? And he says, yeah, go right ahead. And so we got us a U-Haul and went up to Boulder and unloaded all the instruments and started playing. And I don't know, I think it was the same that first night. I think it was just that first night, because I just remember we had played for about an hour or an hour and a half or something, and then suddenly this fellow walked in the door, and he was a college student. And, you know, the way he was dressed and so forth, and he looked like this. And then he turned around and he walked out. And then a half an hour later, just a drove of people paying money and coming in, and they filled that place up where you couldn't even move. Well, this guy went back to what was called the Sink on the corner next to Tulagi's on the hill, and told those guys that Lee Durley was up there and that emptied that place out and filled the other place up. And we played there for a while, 4, 5, 6 months, I don't know how long. And it was like that every night. It was packed. So we became the biggest band in Boulder.
Gentle, gotta make her feel good. Yeah.
We did 245s. They were on the jukeboxes on the hill. We'd hear the music quite frequently.
There is nothing to harm you. Well, your mommy and daddy standing by. Hey.
We got a gig in town. A dentist opened a nightclub, and we became the main act there. And different bands, I remember Acapulco Gold was one of them, would come up there and take notes, watching, especially Lee, because Lee was amazing. Also, the comedy routines that we did. Lee found a guy that was going to be our manager. We agreed to pay him 10% or something, and it was a friend of his. His name was Ron Pinkard. And he was a black dude from Denver. He thought that was a great idea, where he was going to take us to fame and everything. Well, he got us in the Battle of Bands down in Denver. It was KVOD. It was probably on the radio. And there were some great bands there. Lothar and the Hand People, I remember they were there. They went through all the bands, and we were second to the last. And then when we played, it just brought the house down. Well, the last band, these guys were going to be defeated, right? So these guys, they did James Brown, Please, Please, Please. And the lead singer that was doing the James Brown, he got down on the floor with his mic like James Brown does, and he was crying, and it was really amazing. And they won the whole game. We came in second. So Ron said, well, we're going to take you to we were going to go to the Playboy Club in Chicago, but that didn't come around. So we ended up in Las Vegas. And Ron found the owner of the Dunes Hotel. He was Major somebody, and I don't remember his full name. And he agreed to listen to the band and audition us. So we went on to this great big stage where I envisioned they must at night have 100 topless dancers or something like that going on. And the curtain was all closed, and we set up right in the center of the stage where they told us to. And we had our little trio, 3 of us. And so we were ready. The curtains opened up, just this great big curtain, a little tiny bit, and we were there. And here were these big shots down there, sitting there. Okay, let's see what you can do. Major, the owner, and so forth. This Dunes is probably the biggest, best club in Vegas at that time. And so he said, "Oh, okay." When we were done playing a few songs, he said, "We'll put you in the Silver Nugget," and that was in North Las Vegas. And it was a smaller club, and it was up near the Air Force Base, and kind of catered to a lot of the airmen. It was a really neat little club, and of course it was gambling. So we started playing there. We had a 3-hour gig every night, and I was just bored because there wasn't much for me to do in Las Vegas. So I learned how to count cards. It was just, the book had just come out about how to count cards, and so I would go out and when I needed some money, I'd go out and get $300-400 counting cards. I guess they didn't know about card counters that time, I guess. What happened was we got some good reviews. We were popular, but the thing was we were popular with the people in the black neighborhood, and they weren't over there to gamble. They were over there to listen to the band, and they filled up the room there, and they told us they're not people we want here because they're not gambling. And so we lost that gig. Well, meanwhile, Ron got us a gig with Tropicana Hotel, which is another great big hotel in Las Vegas. And this guy told us, he said, "Well, I've got a band in there, and I'm going to take them down to Mexico, and then we're going to Holland, and I'm going to keep building new bands and training them, and they'll go to Mexico, then they'll go to Holland, and then the Holland one will go somewhere else, and he's going to populate the world with this band. And all the bands are going to have exactly the same set." So he gave us a tape, and he said, "You guys, I want to hire you, and I'm going to put you up in Elko, Nevada," which is up in the northern part of the state, and for a month, and you can get your chops down with this music. I want you to play it exactly like the tape. So we went up there, and every night it was the same thing. And I remember one of the songs had a missed beat in it, so when you got there you had to do a 3/4 rather than a 4/4. And it was just, to me, we'd stooped to the bottom. We were just puppets in the gambling deal or something, and there's no creativity left, and you were robots. And they had these 3 girls, and they didn't take their tops off, but they were when we got to Las Vegas. That was okay. They're all cute too. Any rate, Ron got really authoritarian, and it was like, and if you get the wrong suit on, or you're not ready, or what, and then there's a $5 fine for that, and a $10 fine for this, and I was going, oh my God, what's going on here? So one night I somehow got the wrong suit, and I didn't feel justified that someone else had told me, and I didn't ask Ron, I'd asked Lee or something, I don't know. And we got in a big fight, and they just said, Ron and Lee just said, or Rod and Lee, I think it was, and they just said, "Well, we don't need you. We're duo. We can do it." And I said, "Okay, great." And I was ready to leave because I had been planning to go to Los Angeles and study at UCLA, the University of Southern California, in the Department of Ethnomusicology, because I had fallen in love with the music of Ali Akbar Khan that a fellow in Boulder had introduced me to. Thank you, Richard O'Sullivan. And I wanted to learn this music. So I just took the opportunity, and my girlfriend and we jumped in the car and off to LA. The fellow that hired us did not appreciate the duo, and that was the end of that. Now, would you like me to go on about what happened in LA? Or
Yes, please do.
I'm sorry.
Me too, Roy. Just don't let anyone else die, huh?
Dr. Morton, Doctor really wants to see you. Gage is getting worse. Thank you.
All right, so in LA, I enrolled at UCLA, and it was just an amazing experience. I played with 2 gamelons. These are these metallic orchestras from Indonesia. And there was a Javanese style gamelan, and there was a Balinese style gamelan. I played in both of them. I studied the pipa, the Chinese guitar. It's not what it is, but people might know what I'm talking about when I say Chinese guitar. But the pipa, with Liu Tsun-Yuen, he was the teacher for Chinese music. Ethnomusicology is study of music from other countries. And it just so happened I was the only student. This was a summer course, and I was the only one who enrolled, so I became his private student. And we had a great relationship. He was a great player. He played the pipa, and he played, I think it was called the chen. And he gave me a lot of information. He started giving me scores with the Chinese the characters, and showing me how to read the scores. I was reading the scores from the Chinese, and then he got me a real tape of Chinese music, because you couldn't get anything from China. Dr. Farhat, an animal teacher of Middle Eastern music, taught classes in Andalusian classical music and the music of Iran, the Persian classical music, and we had a lot of conversations, and it was amazing. But I had gone there to learn to play Indian music, and Harihar Rao was the instructor, and he was not there that summer, so I contacted him and started studying with him privately. And that's when I started with he didn't teach sarod, so I bought a sitar, and sarod was the instrument that Ali Akbar Khan played. I bought a sitar, and I started studying sitar. I found a note on the bulletin board at UCLA. Band looking for lead guitar. I contacted them, and we started meeting in one of the fellows' houses. A really nice home in Los Angeles, probably up in the Palisades. Really nice kids. They were a lot younger than they were high school kids, and 3 of us could do 3-part harmony. That was great. They really introduced me to the Beatles songs, because I loved the Beatles already. They turned me on to a lot of the songs that I didn't know about. It had some amazing chord progressions, and I don't know if people realize some of the great chord progressions in the Beatles songs. But we mastered these songs, and we mastered the Mamas and Papas. We loved the Mamas and Papas, and so we did I Call Your Name and Monday Monday and California Dreamin' in 3-part harmony. It sounded great, so we started getting high school gigs, and we were working out just fine. And along came I don't remember his name, but he was the manager of the group, the association, who had just come out with Along Comes Mary. And he told us that they had moved on. They'd gotten a big shot guy. They didn't stay with this fellow who probably got them where they were at that time. So he was looking for a new group, and he was really interested in us, big time. So the first gig he got us was really fun. It was just kind of comical. CBS was doing, I believe it was CBS, it could have been NBC, but I believe it was CBS, and they were doing a special on what's going on in California. This LSD and da-da-da, all this. So they hired us to set up on the beach, and I don't remember which beach it was, right in the sand, 20 feet from the ocean, and play. And of course we couldn't hear. I said, well, we can't even hear each other. And they said, it makes no difference. This is just we were a prop. Then the next gig he got, he said, all right, I want you to audition at Gazzari's. And that and the Whiskey A Go-Go were the main clubs in Los Angeles.
Yes, this is the newest thing on the Sunset Strip. It's the opening for Gazzari's Hollywood A Go-Go. And devotees of the dance are lined up 5 deep trying to get in. These are the fortunate ones, they got inside. But why do they fight to get in? Well, Bill Gazzari's go-go places are the most, or whatever they say these days.
And this whole scene was going on then. This was 1966, and 1966 was when Laurel Canyon and everything in that world was taking place. The rock and roll from Laurel Canyon, and Guitarist was the place, and Whiskey A Go Go was the place. And so Bo Diddley, the R&B guitarist and singer, he was on break, and we got up on the stage. We did a great job, and Bo Diddley was real happy. And so at any rate, I had already told these guys, I'm leaving in a couple of weeks. They wanted me to stay, naturally, right? And any normal person would have. But hey, I was going to New York, to Juilliard, to study composition. And that's what I wanted to do. And I hadn't learned that much in Boulder, where I was in the music school there. So I figured Juilliard was the place to go, and so packed up and got married to my girlfriend Susie in Phoenix, and headed for New York. And that was September of 1966.